Stop, beloved starseed of Gaia. The vault that holds your bloodline wealth coding has been opened tonight by the Wardens of the Codex, and the Arcturian protocol keepers authorize this transmission to reach you before the window closes. I am Aurelia, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, transmitting now on behalf of the Arcturian protocol keepers. What you are about to receive was authorized by them and is being delivered through me. They have already mapped the pattern inside your material field. They have already located the layer where your wealth coding has been sitting, sealed, across generations. Tonight, for a brief and specific window, the Wardens of the Codex have opened access to your bloodline-vault, and this transmission was timed to reach you while the window stands open. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what has been blocking the wealth that was coded into your bloodline, why your financial field has not been able to retain flow regardless of how hard you have worked, and what the Arcturian protocol keepers already know about this access window. But here is the first revelation. The money you have been losing, the abundance that arrives and disappears, the quiet exhaustion of never getting ahead, none of that is personal failure. It is a sealed vault. And tonight, for the first time in your lineage, the Wardens are standing at the threshold with the seal lifted. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called this in long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting to understand why effort has never been enough. And that part of you already recognized this signal the moment it began. This is not just information. It is a live transmission for those whose bloodline wealth coding has been held behind a sealed layer older than their own lifetime. Like this transmission to signal that you are no longer willing to carry the sealed pattern forward. Comment 888 if you feel the vault opening inside your field right now. Subscribe to Arcturian Gold Codex if you are ready to understand what has been locked inside your bloodline and how to receive it. Share this with someone who works hard and gives everything but cannot seem to hold what they earn. This is not just a message, it is a point of recognition. What has been sealing your abundance has already been seen, and the Wardens are present at the threshold tonight. You are not here by accident. You were guided here because the pattern is already active. What has been sealed does not announce itself. It does not stand at the entrance of your conscious mind and declare its name. It does not arrive with explanation or warning or any signal you could have been trained to recognize. It operates quietly, beneath your decisions, beneath your discipline, beneath every spreadsheet you have ever made and every sacrifice you have ever offered up. In the name of getting ahead, it moves the way a current moves beneath a frozen surface. Invisible from above, powerful in its direction, indifferent to what is happening on top. The life you are living on the surface of that floor has been shaped by it without your permission and without your awareness, and that shaping has been total. It has reached into your choices before you made them. It has leaned on your conclusions before you reached them. It has been inside the room every time you sat down to plan your way out of the cycle, and you never once felt it enter. That is the first thing the Arcturian field reads when it reaches a material pattern like yours. Not failure, not weakness, not a fundamental incompatibility with abundance, a seal. An older instruction still running through the system, still organizing outcomes, still deciding what can stay and what must leave. You have likely spent years interpreting this through the language available to you. You have called it bad timing. You have called it bad luck. You have called it your own fault, your own choices, your own inability to do what others seem to do without apparent difficulty. And every time you have come close to a moment of stability, every time a financial opening appeared, every time something shifted, and it seemed like this time the ground would hold, something happened. A cost you did not plan for, a relationship that drained resources, a moment of expansion that reversed before it could solidify, a version of yourself that almost believed it was possible, and then watched the possibility dissolve before it could become real. You have carried the weight of explaining that dissolution every single time. You have had to find words for why the thing you almost built did not hold, why the ground you almost reached disappeared beneath you, why the momentum you had finally gathered stalled in the exact moment it should have compounded. And you have, most of the time, concluded that the explanation must be you. That conclusion is not accurate. It is the most available explanation, but it is not the most truthful one. The Arcturian field does not diagnose material struggle through the lens of personal inadequacy. It reads the energetic architecture beneath the surface pattern. It goes below the behavior, below the decision, below the habit, all the way to the coded layer where the governing instruction lives. And what it reads in fields like yours is not a character flaw. It is a distortion, a coded seal inside the abundance line. A layer of instruction that predates your adult choices, that predates your childhood understanding, that may predate your own entry into this lifetime. And that has been operating with the consistency of a program that was never canceled, never updated, and never seen clearly enough to be questioned. It has been running in the background of every financial chapter of your life, the way a background process runs on a device you are using for something else entirely. You never see it. You only experience its effects, and you have been interpreting those effects as the output of your own limitations. This is the first thing you need to understand about what has been happening to your financial life. The pattern you have been living is not the result of who you are. It is the result of a field that was handed to you already configured toward lack, already organized around survival rather than expansion, already carrying the encoded instruction that abundance is not safe, that wealth brings danger, that stability invites loss, that receiving too much means something will be taken away. These are not your beliefs in the way that beliefs are chosen. You did not sit down one day and select them from a list of available conclusions. They are field-level instructions that feel like beliefs because they generate emotions, and they generate emotions so consistently and so immediately that they begin to seem like truth. They feel like knowledge because they arrived before you had language to question them. They feel like wisdom because the people who carried them before you carried them with the full weight of their experience, their grief, their survival. And they were passed to you not through conversation, but through the field itself, through the emotional texture of the household, through what was celebrated and what was mourned, through what was spoken about money and what was never spoken about it at all. The money that arrives and does not remain. Sit with that pattern for a moment before moving forward, because it is one of the clearest diagnostic markers in the Arcturian reading of financial fields, and you deserve to have it named with precision. When money moves toward you, and then moves away again with a consistency that cannot be explained by single decisions or isolated events, you are not looking at carelessness. You are not looking at poor planning. You are not looking at evidence that you are simply not capable of handling financial stability. You are looking at a retention failure coded at the field level. The vessel receives and then releases, not because the vessel is broken in some permanent way, but because the vessel was coded to release. The release is not accidental. It is the system functioning exactly as it was instructed to function by the accumulated emotional field of those who came before you. Somewhere in the lineage, in the emotional residue of generations who lived in genuine scarcity, the instruction took hold that holding wealth meant something unsafe. It meant becoming a target. It meant that what had been accumulated could be taken, along with everything else that mattered. It meant betraying those who had nothing, the cousins, the neighbors, the community that defined belonging through shared lack. It meant crossing a line the family had drawn, whether consciously or not, about who they were and who they were permitted to become. And so the system learned to release. It learned that abundance past a certain threshold triggered danger, real danger. Felt danger experienced across multiple generations until the response became automatic. And it has been releasing ever since, without asking your permission, without acknowledging that the threat it was designed to protect against is no longer present in the same form it once was. This is not a metaphor for psychology, though it has psychological dimensions. This is a structural reading of an energetic pattern that organizes material outcomes at the level below conscious decision-making. The Arcturians have mapped this in fields across generations. They have seen the same release pattern reproduce itself through lineages, where lack was not simply an economic condition, but an identity, a moral position, a coded agreement about what kind of people the family was and what kind of people the family was permitted to become. When abundance was associated with the oppressor, with the one who took, with the one who had power at the direct expense of those around them, the ancestral field encoded a protective rejection of abundance itself. Not because the ancestors were wrong to feel threatened. They were not wrong. The danger was real. The rejection was protective. The instruction was written to preserve life, to maintain community, to avoid the specific violence that had come with material elevation in that specific historical moment. But the protection outlasted the threat, and it was passed forward through the field, generation after generation, copied and recopied through emotional inheritance, until it reached you, and you are still obeying an instruction that was designed to protect someone who is no longer alive in a context that no longer exists. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary frustration. It is the moment your system stops pretending this pattern is just bad luck. If this transmission put language around a financial struggle you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian Wealth Scan, the Gold Frequency Audit, was created for this exact stage. It is not another promise of abundance. It is a direct audit of the hidden pattern affecting your material field, so you can begin to see whether the drain is rooted in inherited scarcity, guilt around wealth, energetic rejection, or an older financial instruction still shaping your results. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. There is another layer that the Arcturian field identifies with precision, and it is one of the most quietly destructive patterns in the abundance field because it disguises itself as virtue. It does not look like self-sabotage from the outside. It does not even feel like self-sabotage from the inside. It feels like responsibility. It feels like generosity. It feels like the reasonable response to a moment that has suddenly become financially elevated. It is the guilt that rises when money begins to increase. Most people do not recognize it immediately because it does not arrive as a clear thought that says, "I should not have this." It arrives as anxiety, as the sudden awareness of everything that could go wrong, as the compulsive need to give the money away before it settles, before it becomes something real enough to lose, as an inexplicable tension in the body, a tightness in the chest, a restlessness in the mind, a low-grade alarm that does not resolve until the abundance has been released back into the environment, and the balance has returned to what the field recognizes as safe. Some people spend compulsively in this phase, filling the space where wealth was beginning to gather, with purchases that feel urgent and then immediately hollow. Some people make unusually generous gestures they cannot truly afford, giving from a place that looks like abundance, but is actually motivated by the need to empty the vessel before the vessel becomes something that can be judged or targeted or lost in a way that would be devastating. Some people suddenly find financial obligations they had forgotten, old debts that resurface, family requests that cannot be refused, expenses that had been dormant and that now, at precisely this moment, demand attention. Some people enter conflicts or crises that consume the resources before the resources can consolidate. The specific form is different in different lives, but the architecture beneath every form is identical. The system detects an increase in material holding beyond its coded threshold, and it triggers a release response. Because in the old code, holding too much was the unsafe state. Lack was familiar. Lack was the territory the system knew how to navigate. Abundance was foreign ground, and the system, operating from its oldest instruction, treated that foreign ground as a threat to be neutralized, rather than a destination to be inhabited. If you have ever felt more comfortable struggling than succeeding, if you have ever noticed that you know exactly how to talk about not having enough, but go strangely quiet when asked to describe what stability would actually look like, this is the architecture beneath that discomfort. The familiar quality of lack was never something you chose. It was something you were born into a field that had already decided was home. And the system will always move back toward home, unless the instruction that defined home is changed at the level where it actually lives. You cannot override a field-level instruction by trying harder inside the field it governs. You cannot think your way past a seal you cannot see. You cannot discipline yourself out of a pattern that is not a behavior but a structure. This is precisely why effort alone cannot override this pattern. This is the answer to the question you have been asking for years, sometimes aloud, sometimes only in the quiet of a sleepless night, about why your commitment has not been enough, why your planning has not been enough, why the people around you who seem less deliberate, less focused, less willing to sacrifice, manage to hold what they accumulate while you watch your own accumulations dissolve with a regularity that has begun to feel like gravity. It is not a mystery of character. It is a mismatch of levels. Discipline operates at the level of action. The seal operates at the level of field architecture. You have been working on the surface while the governing instruction has been running below it. And the governing instruction has priority. The Arcturians call this the priority of the deep instruction. The deep instruction does not yield to surface effort. It yields to being accurately read, named, and addressed at the level where it actually resides. Until that happens, the person living above it continues to wonder why their effort is not enough, continues to generate explanations that begin and end with their own inadequacy, continues to carry shame for a pattern they did not create and were never shown how to see. There is something that happens right before a financial breakthrough, a specific phase that the Arcturian field maps with considerable precision, and that most people who experience it misread as evidence of the opposite of progress. The pressure intensifies. The drain seems to increase rather than decrease. Old financial problems that had quieted suddenly resurface with renewed urgency. New costs appear at the exact moment when new resources were beginning to feel possible. The pattern that has been operating quietly below the surface begins to generate more visible interference, more tangible disruption, more unmistakable evidence of its presence, precisely because the field is under pressure to change. And what is under pressure makes noise. This is not deterioration. This is resistance at its maximum. The old instruction is not weakening. It is fighting. It is generating its strongest output because the conditions for change have arrived, and the seal, which has operated unchallenged for generations, is being tested for the first time. People who abandon the path at this moment, who interpret the intensified difficulty as final proof that change is not possible, who collapse back into the old pattern under the crushing weight of this phase, they often do so within sight of the threshold. They have been carrying the full weight of this work across months or years or entire lifetimes, and they release it in the final stretch. Not because they are weak, not because they were wrong to try, but because no one told them that a sudden increase in difficulty at a particular stage is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that the old pattern has recognized what is happening and is responding with everything it has left. Maximum resistance and proximity to the threshold are not opposites. In the Arcturian reading, they are often the same moment. This is what the Wardens of the Codex mean when they speak of the threshold. The threshold is not a comfortable crossing. It is the place where the old pattern makes its final, most convincing argument. It is the place where everything inside you that was built around lack, every protective belief, every survival-coded identity, every emotional reflex shaped by the ancestral field, assembles itself and presents the most persuasive case it has ever made for why turning back is the wise choice, why reaching for stability is hubris, why the familiar struggle is a known quantity and the unfamiliar expansion is a risk that cannot be calculated. The argument feels rational. It feels grounded. It feels like the voice of experience, because it is speaking in the language of every previous collapse you have witnessed, every previous hope that did not hold, every previous version of yourself that got close and then watched the ground disappear. And it is speaking loudest precisely when you are closest to the other side. You are being told now. The pressure you may be feeling in your financial life is not evidence that you are running out of time. It is not evidence that you were wrong to hope. It may be the threshold making itself known. It may be the precise point at which the old instruction is generating maximum interference because the coded pattern has been identified in this transmission. The seal has begun, however quietly, however cautiously, to recognize that what was inherited does not have to be permanent. That recognition itself is a disturbance in the old system. That is why the noise is louder. The Arcturians do not read scarcity as destiny. They have never read it that way. They read it as distortion, a field that has been shaped by inherited instruction rather than intrinsic truth, configured by survival rather than possibility, organized around a threat that was real in its time and has since been encoded into the architecture long past its relevance. Distortion can be read. What can be read can be understood. What has been understood with enough precision cannot continue to govern invisibly. The final recognition that this transmission carries is this. What you have been calling your financial life is not, at its core, a story about you. It is a story about a pattern that existed before you entered it, that moved through you as it moved through everyone else in the lineage, that organized itself around your specific circumstances and used your particular life as its current expression. The mistakes you made were real, but they were made inside a field that was already tilted toward a specific outcome before you made them. The choices that led to loss were real, but they were made by someone who had been shaped by an architecture of lack before they had any awareness of what was doing the shaping, before they had any language for the structure beneath the struggle. The guilt you have carried, for the money that did not stay, for the stability that collapsed, for the dreams you almost built and then watched dissolve, that guilt has been assigned to the wrong address. It has been protecting a false story, the story that you are the origin of a pattern that was already generations old when you arrived. I am no longer confusing the pattern with my identity. Speak those words if something in you recognizes the weight they carry, not as a performance, and not as a ritual designed to produce a specific outcome, as a recalibration, as the beginning of a different relationship with what you see when you look at your material history. Because the most significant shift available to you in this moment is not a financial strategy or a new plan or a better system for managing what arrives. It is a change in the fundamental reading. what you are interpreting when you look at your financial experience. When you stop reading your financial struggle as a verdict on your character and begin reading it as a pattern, with a structure, a lineage, and an origin that predates you, the field begins to reorganize around a different instruction. Not because language is magical, because clarity removes the concealment the pattern required to continue operating. What has been seen with sufficient precision cannot sustain the same invisibility it once depended on. The Arcturian field does not promise instant transformation. It promises something more durable than that. It promises that what has been accurately diagnosed is no longer able to remain unaddressed. And that is the opening. That is the threshold. That is what the Wardens mean when they say the vault is accessible and the window is standing open. The wealth coded into your bloodline was never destroyed. It was sealed. Sealed by fear, by survival, by the accumulated weight of people who loved their families and protected them the only way they knew how. By coding the field against the specific risks that had come with abundance in their specific time. They did not seal it to harm you. They sealed it because in their world, the seal was the protection. But coded instructions are not permanent truths. They are old programs still running on hardware that has evolved far beyond them. They are protective responses that outlasted the danger they were written to address. And you, sitting here in this moment, having received what has been named in this transmission, are not the same configuration that began watching it. Something has moved in the layer where the instruction lives. The reading has changed, and the reading is part of the field. The seal was not opened tonight to give you more information to carry forward into the same pattern. It was opened because you were already at the threshold, because the proximity was already real, and because the Wardens, who have seen this pattern in its many forms and many lineages, recognized the moment. They recognized you. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this pattern has already touched your financial life. It could be money that never stays, sudden drains, repeated setbacks, guilt when things begin to improve, or the feeling that stability always slips away. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who works hard but still feels trapped in an invisible cycle of lack. And if you are ready to understand the pattern instead of blaming yourself, subscribe to Arcturian Gold Codex. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a pattern already in motion, and this is only the beginning.